It started with the smell of betrayal. Not the poetic, vague kind that people talk about in self help books. I mean a real, tangible smell. Like stale perfume clinging to a coat that isn't yours, mixed with the sharp tang of cheap wine and cigarette smoke. That smell greeted me before the lies did, before the tears, before the explanations that never made sense. I was 28, working as a financial analyst for a mid-sized firm, and I thought my life was neatly organized. My job was stable, my circle of friends was small but loyal, and my relationship with my fiance, Evan, had been steady for almost 6 years. We were the kind of couple people assumed would make it. The ones who got asked to give speeches at engagement parties about how to find the one. We had a shared apartment, joint savings, and a wedding date. And then, one Tuesday night, I came home early from work. It was a mundane reason. My boss canceled the late meeting, so I skipped the gym and headed straight home. The key turned in the lock like it always did. The hinges gave the familiar creak, and I walked into what I thought was my sanctuary. Instead, I found Evan sitting on the couch, shirt half buttoned, with Mara, my best friend since high school, leaning against him in a way that wasn't platonic. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe she'd spilled something on her shirt. Maybe he was helping. Maybe my brain was jumping to conclusions. But then she looked at me and didn't move. No shock, no panic, just a smirk. Evan stammered something, the words tingling over themselves. "It's not what it looks like." The classic pathetic line. But it was exactly what it looked like. And the worst part wasn't that they'd betrayed me. It was that they weren't even sorry. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even slam the door. I just froze for a few seconds, looked at both of them, and walked into the bedroom. I packed a bag with enough clothes for a week, grabbed my laptop, and left. They didn't follow me. The rage came later, like a delayed explosion. The first few days I stayed at a friend's place, barely speaking. I kept replaying the scene over and over, each time noticing a new detail. The lipstick smudge on his collar, the empty wine glass on the coffee table, the faint perfume that wasn't mine. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from Evan, all variations of, "We can fix this," or "I made a mistake." Mara didn't bother reaching out. By the end of the week, I knew I couldn't just walk away quietly. Not after 6 years, not after all the dinners, vacations, and inside jokes we built together. And definitely not after Mara. The girl who once swore she'd take a bullet for me had the audacity to look me in the eye while she tore my life apart? No, I wasn't going to cry in silence. I was going to burn everything they had left. The first step was gathering information. I didn't want a messy, emotional outburst. I wanted precision. I still had access to our shared bank account, so I made sure to copy every statement, every receipt, every suspicious expense. Evan had been sloppy. Hotel charges during business trips, dinners for two at places we'd never been together, a necklace that certainly wasn't mine. Then I turned to Mara. We'd shared so much over the years. Passwords, secrets, late-night confessions. I knew her social media logins, her email, her private photo album. Within hours, I had enough dirt to ruin her carefully curated image as a sweet, wholesome teacher. There were messages to multiple men, some of whom were definitely married, and one particularly incriminating email chain between her and Evan where they discussed me like I was a piece of furniture they decided to throw out. Reading those words felt like swallowing glass, but it also sharpened my resolve. Step 2, patience. Revenge is a dish best served cold, but it's also a dish best prepared quietly. I played the part of the heartbroken ex for the next 3 weeks, responding to Evan's texts just enough to keep him from getting suspicious. Mara still stayed silent. Maybe she thought Evan would do her dirty work and break things off officially. While they were busy living their little fantasy, I was busy planting seeds. Anonymous tips to the school board about Mara's inappropriate communications with a parent, a forwarded email to Evan's boss containing proof that he'd been using company funds for personal trips, screenshots sent to the wives of Mara's other men. And then came the piece de resistance, the wedding venue. We'd booked it months in advance, and I'd been the primary contact. I called them, explained that we'd decided on a different direction for the event, and arranged for the deposit to be refunded to my personal account. When Evan found out, I knew he'd realize it was over for good. The final act came on a Friday night. I invited Evan to meet me at our apartment to talk. He showed up looking tired, maybe even hopeful. I let him sit, poured him a drink, and handed him a thick envelope. Inside were copies of everything: the receipts, the emails, the screenshots, every lie, every betrayal, neatly organized. He flipped through them, face growing paler with each page. "Why are you doing this?" he finally asked. I smiled. "Because you deserve it. And so does she." I walked out, leaving him with the papers. By the time I got to my car, my phone was buzzing again. But this time I didn't care. I drove away, feeling lighter than I had in years. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was brutal. Evan lost his job. Mara was put on leave pending investigation. Their little affair imploded under the pressure, each blaming the other for the mess. Friends who had once admired them now avoided them. As for me, I moved into a new apartment, got a promotion, and started over. I didn't need to forgive them. I didn't need closure. I just needed to know that they'd never forget what they did. And that every time they looked at each other, they'd see the wreckage they caused. Because some betrayals don't deserve silence. They deserve fire.